Welcome back to the Brompton Guy. Today we are here to finally talk about the 12-speed Explorer just recently released by Brompton. The bike itself has had a lot of hype and we've already covered the rumours of the bike on the channel. But does the bike, now it's been released, live up to the hype? Well, today we're going to break it down. Brompton are advertising this bike as the lowest gear ever, the highest gear ever, the most in between, and one of the bikes that you can use for touring, commuting and beyond. Quite the statement by the company. But a couple of the questions I have, is this bike actually what all the consumers have been crying out for and everyone's going to upgrade to it? Is it aimed at people getting into Bromptons for the first time? Or have they now just made things a little bit too complicated to make Brompton as simple as just buying a bicycle? We're going to cover it all in detail in the channel today, and I'm just going to give you some of my honest opinions here. So let's dive right into it as we break down the Brompton 12-speed Explorer.
He's the Brompton Guy!
The Brompton 12-speed Explorer, probably one of the most anticipated and probably asked for bikes by the Brompton community. Everyone's going to have a strong opinion if it's the right thing or the wrong thing for the company, and I just want to share my honest opinion because this bike, in my opinion, is a little bit unusual for Brompton's tactics of how they advertise the company. Now my opinion is going to be different from the next person's, but I hope you stick through it and you can gain my perspective. If you want to disagree with it, feel free and I'll answer it back in the comments there. Now the 12-speed itself, we have already covered in the rumoured video. It's pretty much built up of all the technology Brompton has had before. So we have the 3-speed rear hub and we have the 4-speed derailleur setup. Now what this is meaning is that at this point in time, the 12-speed is only available on the P-line and T-line models. And that's simply because they have the advanced frame at the back. And that frame has already been adapted to take the derailleur setup. Now, the rear hub has been completely redesigned also, but we can understand the concept of how that already works. And what this two combination gives is, no surprise, the widest gear ratio on any Brompton. This will appeal to masses of people that already know the gear limitations on a Brompton. It will also appeal to people that already find it quite difficult to have what they have because, as I say, it's advertised as the lowest and highest gear ratio bike that Brompton have ever produced. But the big question I have first when I've seen it being released is, who is this bike marketed at? Who is Brompton looked at and been, we want to get this consumer to this product? Now Brompton's company ethos has always been simple from the start, to get more people on bikes, not cyclist people. In my opinion, this bike is very cyclist orientated and to the existing Brompton community, because anyone that has already owned an A-line or a C-line or even a P-line understand the limitations of the gears, but more importantly, how the Brompton gearing system works. Now, I do want to play a brief message from the CEO, Will, about his ethos about how easy it should be to buy a bike. So let's cue up that roll.
Retail. Our industry is selling to cyclists. Square and centre. Shop. Blokey. Techie. Cluttered. And just intimidating. I mean, you walk into a shop. Hello? I'm here for a bike. Oh, right. What sort of bike do you want? Hardtail? Softtail? Gravel? I mean, what's a derailleur? I mean, what's the gears? I mean, you know, what sort of stuff do you want? I mean, are you after the Bosch? Are you after the Shimano? Are you after the thing? A bike? No, take me over here. That's not retail.
As you can see from that video demonstration from Will there, and believe you me, there are lots more others I've got, Will believes in the concept that buying a Brompton should be as simple as going into the store and being like, can I have a Brompton please? He really does make a valid point about other shops obviously having to ask specific questions to the consumer. That's not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion, because they've got a bigger range where they can get the right bike for someone, but as someone that just wants a bike, yes, it probably is a little bit overwhelming. But the point to highlight that clip is I really feel buying a Brompton is getting that bit more complicated than it should be or has to be. And for example, I've not went into a Brompton retail store, but I could imagine as soon as you go in now, you already have a multiple options to pick from, because we're going to have to decide what seat tube size you need, what handlebar shape and what length of stem works best for you, if you want it manually powered or if you want it electric. We need to go through this whole craziness of the gearing options you now have for the bike and how they work. And you also have the option of, do you want it made of steel? Do you want it made of titanium? Do you want it made of a mixture of both? There's so many options that going in and being like, I just want a Brompton wouldn't be the right thing to be like, here you go, because you have to discuss those options. Now, I think Brompton have done very well in the ethos of, we don't appeal to cyclists, we appeal to people who want to ride a bike. But now you're going to have to go in and have a little bit more complex conversations. I have put together a over-dramatisation of what it potentially could be like if you were to go in and have information about the 12-speed bike being presented to you. Now, I want to share this with you and see what your opinion is on it. Hi, welcome to the Brompton store. How can we help you today?
Yeah, I wonder if you can. I'm just looking for a bike. I just really want to get from A to B, if you can help with that.
Okay, so when picking a Brompton, there's only a couple of options to choose from, which keeps it really simple. We need to decide what length of seat post you want, and that's based on your height. And we also have two different styles of handlebars, which will change your riding position, but we can talk over the slight benefits and disadvantages of each one.
Yeah, sure, that sounds great. It sounds really, really simple. Thanks for helping.
The only other thing you need to do as an end user is pick which gearing options work best for you. We do have a range of options from 1 gear all the way up to 12 gears.
Right, okay, that isn't really something I've considered, but I'm guessing the common logic would be the more gears, the easier it is to cycle the bike.
Yeah, absolutely. A bike with more gears has way more variation depending on the terrain that you face. So for instance, we have our brand new 12-speed model here, and I'm quite happy to talk you over that if you're willing.
Yeah, do you know what? That sounds great. I mean, the more gears sounds like a better option for myself. I'm assuming it's as simple as it just goes from 1 to 12?
Well, yes, it does shift from 1 to 12, but you have the two different shifters in order to achieve those 12 gears. What I'll do is I'll give you a brief explanation. It's really simple. We'll start with the left shifter here. So the left shifter, as you can see on it, says 1 to 4. That 1 to 4 represents the little cassette there. You can see the back, you see the little steps there, and that shifts the chain up from 1 to 4 on that side there. But you do have to bear in mind when shifting with the left shifter that you have to keep pedaling, because it's the pedaling that helps the chain move up and down. So that's pretty simple. You just need to keep a light pedal, shift up and down. But your shifter on the right is labelled 1 to 3, and that changes the gears inside the little hub there at the back. So what that does is help us get a wider gear range on the bike. But you do have to bear in mind that on the right shifter, you have to stop pedaling. So I know it seems a little strange that you pedal for this one, but you don't pedal for that one. But that's because the way the sprocket engages in the mechanism at the back needs it to stop to fluently change. It's going to be a little strange maybe at first, but it's honestly absolutely fine to go up there. But you may be wondering, well, how's it 12 gears? Well, the easiest way to put it is obviously we've got the 1 to 3 on the right and the 1 to 4 on the other one. So say you want to be in the hardest gear, you just want to be in the 4 on this side and the 3 on that side. But you don't really want to change from that rapidly because it gives you a bigger range of ratio to shift from. So you want to, if you're going from the 1 to 2, you might want to swap from the 4 to the 1 on the left, but just bear in mind for the left one, you have to pedal, and the other one, you don't want to be pedaling to shift that one down. So just bear that in mind when you are deciding how you want to shift and how easy the gear you want it to be is. So for instance, the best way to see it is if you're in the 1 on the right shifter, but you're in the 4 on the other one, you aren't in the hardest gear, you're in the hardest gear in the easier range of the gears, but you're not in the hardest gear. But for instance, if you were to then shift your right shifter, remember to stop pedaling, up to the 2, that would then take you up to gear 8. So you were on gear 4, and that will then take you up to gear 8. So it's quite a big shift. So what you might want to do is pedal a bit to switch your left one to go maybe down 1 or 2 gears, and then switch your right one so that it's...
I don't mind complicated, but the line is crossed, I'm waiting for a sincere apology.
will notice a big difference, but it does give you great range on the road.
That all sounds great. Not quite sure if I was overly clear. I just want a bike.
Now, I know people, especially in the rumour video, said that the new system isn't complicated, but I hope that does break down that if you take all your knowledge of cycling and owner of Brompton out the equation, trying to explain that to someone is a very complicated task, especially when you look at some of the competitors, which I'm obviously a fan of, like the roll-off hub, which simply has one shifter that goes from 1 to 14. An incredibly simple concept to put to the end consumer, and what a person who just wants a bike would partially expect. I have dealt with lots of people that are new to cycling, and even drop shifters are super complex to them, and our biggest fan is one-buy systems because all it is one shifter. So I have to feel that this bike is aimed at existing C-Lane users that have always talked about wanting a bigger gear range, but I don't want to say it's forcing them, but it's making them upgrade to the P-Line technology at the higher price point to get the gearing that they want. I do actually think overall this is a great strategy from Brompton, because as myself, I know the people that own Bromptons are massive fans of the brand, and to support the brand is something they're happy to do if they have a reason to support the brand. So by upgrading, it makes sense for the company and the people buying it because they will really enjoy the bike. Now, I don't want to feel like I'm coming off overly negative about the bike, because I generally do stand by the principle. I personally feel the bike is great and it is really good to see Brompton do something different. I just want to highlight the point that I feel that Brompton as a company should be positioned as much more at C-Line upgrades. One other point I would like to highlight here, and I have touched on it briefly on my P-Line review, and I know people have asked me to explain a bit more, so I will try and do it in this video here. This bike is obviously aimed at touring. It's people looking to do bigger miles in the bike with loads over multiple days. My worry with this is that already on my P-Line I have had multiple issues with the reliability of the Brompton 4-speed derailleur setup. Now, the issues I've had is personally, I find the lower limit that you set seems to always have a little tweak out. So even if you set it, it's constantly moving a little bit, giving me a little bit of a ting on the very bottom cog itself. And the other thing I find is having issues at the moment is holding its cable tension. So the largest sprocket is constantly needing to put a little bit more tension to bring it back up to the top. So the outer limit is fine, but the tension just keeps to keep dropping off the cable. Now, it is a new bike, so maybe it is wearing in, but I've had to twist the little knob to adjust that tension more than I would like, and definitely more than I would have expected to on a bike. Now, I've cycled derailleur bikes for a long time, and never have I had to tweak anything as much as this. That being said though, when it is technically set up, there's only 4 speeds and it does shift really nice, but so far, over just riding it on normal terrain, it's nothing bumpy. I think that's what's causing it to ever so slightly shift and lose tension on it. That's only my experience, and I would picture from a touring community point, the internally geared hub has proven to be the best over time. That's why companies like Roll-Off do so well in that bracket, and even Bromptons, because for a reliability point of view, from dust and cleaning and everything, it makes perfect sense. I feel we're adding a variable in that actually makes touring experience a little bit less reliable than if they could have done a large internally geared hub itself. The other point I think that complements what I'm trying to say here about how complicated the gears, I would say, to an end user is that when Brompton released this bike, they produced a 30-second ad to highlight the bike itself. A couple of people riding around saying Brompton 12 speeds, the end. But in order to explain the gearing, they've had to release a 5-minute video to explain how the gearing works. I really think that does highlight my concern to anyone that's new to it. I say if you're existing to Brompton, you're probably thinking I'm just ranting on about something that isn't an issue, but I honestly feel if you're new to Brompton, this would be overwhelming, especially with the whole concept of having to stop pedaling, start pedaling to shift different types of gear. Fair enough, you will get away and it will do it not as efficiently, but it's just a lot to take in and explain to someone. The only other thing that I do feel is a little bit annoying is that they have now obviously again made changing the rear a little more complicated and dirtier, because you have to pull the chain in order to get the derailleur back round with the hub on. It's made it a messy situation, and again, I know experienced Brompton users know how to change a flat or repair a flat without actually taking the wear out, but this bike would require a good bit of know-how to actually be applicable to a new Brompton user. Now, the only other thing I feel that is important to mention is the price. They're aiming it at people who want to upgrade from the C-line, in my opinion. So it's trying to get more people into the P-line range and necessarily the T-line, and it is quite interesting because I actually think now the T-line looks like a significantly better valued bike than it had before. So I still think it's ridiculously priced for what it is, but yes, I do really still want one. But it has made me think, if I was to get a T-line now, would I get it in the 12-speed variation? And I very much think I would. I think it's an unbelievable product with a range, and the T-line is a bike I couldn't see myself modifying. So I think they've really hit the nail on the head with the T-line. I don't think it was overly necessary in the P-line electric. I can see its place on the P-line, but yeah, it's an expensive bike. But the one thing that always warrants the Bromptons cost, because that cost of the bike would go a long way on a really, really good touring bike. But what does a good touring bike not have? It does not fold. You cannot hide the value of what that fold means to people. And I think that is what will drive a lot of people into this bike, is the fact that you can still take it on rails, you can still take it into hotels. It has multiple bailout options without any sacrifice to you. And that is always Brompton's strongest selling point, regardless of what introductions they have of technology. Now, overall, I really do like that Brompton's pushed the boat out here and listened to the community of what they want. I think it could be advertised a little bit better that this is more of an advanced Brompton. I do think it's going to make the retail journey a little bit harder, because it's going to have extended conversations and takes Brompton away from its ethos of just a bike. That's my honest thoughts to it. I hope you've gained some information from this, and I hope I've highlighted some bits of information that were useful and it's not just felt like a rant. Obviously, any questions, feel free to shoot them into the comment section. I'm quite happy to get back to you on that there. And if I do ever get the privilege of riding one, you can definitely bet I'll be making a video on that. But as always, thank you so much for stopping in here at the Brompton Guy. All your support and views have been amazing. And if you want to continue to support the channel, hit the thumbs up button so that this video can go out to more people like yourself. Enjoy your night, and thanks once again.
He's there!